Why is Diablo 4 so bad? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's because Lilith's boobs aren't big enough. That's why. If they were bigger, the game would be better. It's that simple.
Everybody, this is the Christian man here, and today I'm really disappointed. Like, more so than usual. Because Diablo 4 started off so strong. Blizzard hooked me in. I was invested in the story, in the gameplay. But I guess I wasn't a fish worth catching. I'm just a lowly sea bass in Animal Crossing, worth only 120 bells. I guess the reason I use this...
oh, bells mean dollars, because you probably got the deluxe edition. You see what I'm saying?
Is because I've accepted that I'm no longer the target demographic of Diablo games. I've realized that Blizzard ain't making these games for people with my kind of interests. In truth, the tastes of modern gamers has evolved and changed, and Diablo is more profitable than it's ever been. But that doesn't necessarily mean the games are better than they've ever been, and I'll die on that cross. So yes, you read the title right. I don't like Diablo 4, and I think it's a bad video game. That is my personal opinion. If you enjoy this game, don't let me change your mind, okay?
If there's one thing I love...
Wait, hold on.
It's the sight of blood.
You know,
In Diablo 4, there are
I actually think I like this game. I'm not here to police your entertainment. You like what you like, that's fine by me, man. What I'm here to do is whine, bitch, moan, and complain into the ether like an old man. Like an ancient Haradrim who can't understand why everyone's forgotten the old ways. I really wanted to like Diablo 4, but the longer I played it, the more I came to despise it. But before we jump into hell, this video is sponsored by Rocket Money, an all-in-one finance platform that helps you save more and spend less. This finance app allows you to manage subscriptions, lower bills,
do people do this where they just have like a bunch of subscriptions to shit they don't even know? I didn't know this was a thing.
Custom budget and grow your savings all in one place. What I love about Rocket Money is
I've always been super stingy with my fucking money, so I never do that.
I don't have to go to 1,000 different places to see what I'm spending all the time. It makes it very quick and easy to manage and or cancel them. I guarantee you everybody watching this is paying some kind of monthly subscription that they shouldn't be or don't need to. Rocket Money can help lower your bills, and you can monitor your spending by setting up custom budgets. No more gambling my life savings on CSGO skins, am I right, fellas? I also like to use Rocket Money to avoid paying taxes. Just kidding, I love the government. To save more and spend less, join the 3.5 million members using Rocket Money today. And your boy has got the hookup. So go to rocketmoney.com/actman or click the link in the description to get started for free. That's rocketmoney.com/actman to get started for free.
And now for something completely different.
I think that they should probably use as like, if they want to sell this product, they should probably use the comparative value of the amount of subscriptions that you could remove and audit as a comparative value versus the subscription cost. Like if I was marketing this product, I would do it differently. That's what I would do, because then they could sell it as in like, you're using this product to save money.
So let's start with the positives. The combat in Diablo 4 is very fluid and fun overall. It feels good to slaughter hordes of demons with lightning bolts. Now, I didn't play much of 3, but between Diablo 1, 2, and 4, this one might have the best enemy design.
I can see what the problem is. I can see why he didn't like it. Oh, jeez. Oh, boy. I mean, damn.
Design in the series, or at least the most interesting. In the early game, leveling up is extremely satisfying. When I saw this big skill tree for the first time, I just thought, I can't wait to max this out.
Oh yeah.
And one thing I really do appreciate is that boss fights are more about dodging attacks instead of like the classic brute force. Is my number bigger than that boss's number, you know? Because it adds a much greater emphasis on skill and strategy. A lot of boss fights in D1 and D2.
I didn't even know he could have that many. So he can have a... Wow, so you can have that many pools? See, I never played a druid, so the boss wasn't alive this long. This is crazy. Yeah, I had no idea. Wow. Those are druid mechanics? I see. It makes a lot of sense.
Boss fights in D1 and D2 were battles of attrition that could get pretty tedious. Now, I played as a druid, and all the abilities were cool, flashy, and felt awesome to use. The game certainly fulfills the power fantasy many are looking for in a Diablo title, and I appreciate that Blizzard tried to return Diablo to its gothic horror roots instead of fucking Disney cartoon art style they came up with for Diablo 3. So I think with the core gameplay, they've succeeded. Now, before we get into the real shit, let's discuss some minor complaints. For one, Diablo 4 is a modern video game.
Oh,
with all the new features that
is this Battle Pass?
people really love and appreciate in modern games.
Which means it has to be always online just to shove half-assed MMO mechanics in a game that basically has no social features and virtually no
you should be like, why is there not a group finder in Diablo 4? You have an open world, but there's no group finder? Why?
for players to interact with each other.
It's so easy to create a community.
What?
It makes Diablo more of a social experience.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Always online also means if the servers get fucked, then so do you.
What's happened to me?
It's like Blizzard literally learned nothing from Diablo 3. You know, when I see someone lose their hardcore character after putting hundreds of hours into it, and they lose it because of a server issue and not a skill issue?
Nah, I don't believe this. I don't think the problem is that it's always online. PoE's always online too, and guess what? It doesn't matter because PoE instantly disconnects you whenever you are disconnected from the server. Yeah, that's got nothing to do with like Diablo or being always online. There are games that like, listen, question mark? Not really, not always. Oh no, I'm right. So basically the way that PoE works is that as soon as you get disconnected, your character is immediately removed from the world. In Diablo, that doesn't work. So the reason why this happens is actually not because the game is always online, because it's actually solvable even if the game is always online. But Diablo chose not to solve it. That's what the issue is. No, it's not. There's a 6-second timer. Well, I've seen logout macros multiple times.
Yeah, fuck that noise. That's bullshit. At first, I thought it was pretty cool that they added a horse into this game until I unlocked the horse. I mean, it's so janky. It takes like 10 seconds to warm up its engine before it starts running. Like what the fuck?
Well, that's just because of like, they have like this weird thing with acceleration where like the horse runs faster the farther away your mouse is from the front of the screen.
Hey-ya! Hey-ya!
Yeah, that's
Come on,
so dumb.
Giddy up! Giddy up, you bastard! Okay, there he goes. Okay, now on to the real shit. Diablo 4, for me, contains 2 crippling, fun-ruining flaws. Flaws so important that if changed, I would continue playing the game without question.
Okay.
Number 1, the difficulty. Number 2, the skills. Let's start with difficulty. So I stopped playing at level 48 after beating the campaign. Now, you can run down to the comments section and tell me what a casual scrub I am, that I need to play on World Tier 3, and how Diablo 4 starts to get fun and challenging after I beat the game and reach level 50.
And this is the thing, is like, I know a lot of people are going to meme on Actman for this, but do you remember how much I was like fucking pressing and saying, please make Druid endgame or beginning early game better or people are gonna quit and hate the game? Do you remember how much I just kept repeating this over and over and over and nobody wanted to listen? And this is exactly fucking why. I knew this shit would happen because people's first impression with the game is the most important thing. Like this is like, if the game is bad at level 7, people don't care about what it's like at level 70. Because right now it's bad. Well, they don't want, oh, well, you have to invest in it. What the fuck invest in it? What the fuck are you talking about invest? Let's play another game. What is this? Why do I have to play a bad game for an arbitrary period of time until I can have fun that other classes don't even have to deal with at all? It's ridiculous.
And if you're thinking that, you've just proven my point. Why do I have to dump 30 hours?
You said it's difficulty, it's easy. So actually, no, I said difficulty was a factor. But if you actually listen to what I said that playing a Druid and playing a Barbarian, because Barbarian is way better than Druid, I think, at leveling, is not fun. Like, that's fundamentally the problem, is that it's not fun to use a bunch of builder abilities so you can use your spender ability for 3 seconds and then it's over. So it's not about, because he played it on World Tier 2, he could have played it on World Tier 1 and it would have been easier. It's that the character doesn't play well.
Into Diablo 4 simply to unlock a difficulty option that suits my skill.
What's this?
And if you're thinking that, you've just proven my point. Why do I have to dump 30 hours into Diablo 4 simply to unlock a difficulty option that suits my skill and experience? Well, because that's how it's always been, Act Man. Yeah, you're right. The big difference is in Diablo 1 and 2, the games weren't this easy. In D2...
Really? I fought Endario in Diablo 2 and I stomped the shit out of her. It was a joke. No, I remember killing her because I killed her in the beta for Resurrected. Yeah, it was a joke. I don't know.
You had some extreme difficulty spikes. The base game is so ridiculous.
Diablo 3, was there anything hard in Diablo 3? Belial was kind of hard. I don't really think so. I think Diablo 3 had the exact same issue. And I think also Path of Exile has the same thing. Like Path of Exile, if you know how to play ARPGs, Path of Exile will be easy.
Easy that by the time I got to that climactic finale in hell, I was bored out of my mind, begging for it to end. After an experience like that, why the hell would I keep playing? I did end up doing the first capstone dungeon, and for whatever reason, that was like a light switch. It's like, oh my god, I'm actually dying to boss mechanics and not just cheap gimmicks like hard crowd control that lock me in place for 5 seconds. I'm not exaggerating when I say cheap gimmicks.
Yeah, look at this, dude.
It was like a light switch. It's like, oh my god, I'm actually dying to boss mechanics and not just...
Watch how bad this is. There's no visual indicator of when this CC is going to be over.
Cheap gimmicks like hard crowd control that lock me in place for 5 seconds? I'm not exaggerating
it's
when
just
I say
garbage.
Every single death I had, besides this boss, was from hard crowd control. The game had to stop me from moving in order to kill me. This capstone dungeon was like the highlight of my playthrough, likely because I was underleveled for it. So why is this game so...
Well, he'll be happy to know that after he finishes that, he'll be going right back to farming the same bosses he was doing before.
So easy. In Diablo 4, literally everything scales with your level. The cost of items and upgrades, strength of enemies, gear.
Yeah.
It's funny because every quest has a level recommendation next to it, yet it's always the same as your level. So it's like, what's the point? This does provide some
I think
positive
there's some minimums, right?
benefits. It makes it easy to play with friends of higher or lower levels. You don't have to worry about your buddy who's played for 600 hours one-shotting everything and robbing you of the gameplay experience.
Yeah.
Another nice touch is that you don't ever out-level quests, dungeons, or the main story. So
yeah, I'm gonna have a really unpopular take, is that I think that the level scaling does more good than harm. I do. I know people are gonna disagree with that. They're gonna say, no, it's actually bad. I think it does. Diablo is not a game that is like a super hardcore game. The campaign is not meant to be a massive challenge to begin with. And I think that it's really designed for people to play with their friends on, you know, some couch co-op shit or something like that. And I think that's really why it's there. It's not there to make the campaign more of a challenge or anything like that. Like, I'm sorry, but like, that's just the way that's just it. It's true, but it's also boring as fuck. You could say that, yeah. Diablo's not a co-op game. I mean, it's being designed in a way that it's easier to play with your friends. Like, there are a lot of games that have scaling for this exact reason. Like, it's just what I think. I think the scaling is more of a positive than a negative.
you can progress these things in any order you want. However, the drawbacks to the scaling difficulty are so flagrant and obvious, I can't believe more people aren't talking about them. You understand what it actually means for the entire game to scale with the player's level in an RPG? It means that the challenge stays virtually the same from start to finish. Why is this a problem? Well, it's going to take a good long while to explain, but if the only available difficulty option is easy as balls, then you'll be begging for the sweet release of death. Now, we're going to be comparing Diablo 4 to Diablo 1 and 2 and to World of Warcraft a lot. While WoW and D4 are different kinds of games.
You never get stronger? I mean, but you do. Like, I mean, you do. You do get stronger, you don't feel stronger? I don't know. This is in comparison to the mobs. Let me read some of these. You don't feel it at all? I felt like I was getting stronger as I was leveling up. I absolutely did. Because I was getting more legendary effects, I was getting more abilities. Yeah, I mean, I thought it was, I thought it was fine. And I think that if you compare, like, I didn't play all the way through Diablo 3 or Diablo 2's campaign, but, like, I don't think that Diablo is, like, comparatively, I think Belial is harder than Diablo in Diablo 3. Like, I think Butcher is probably the same difficulty as Diablo. I would even argue that Butcher is even harder than Diablo in Diablo 3. So, I'm just not really... Like, I think that's always how it's been. No way. Yeah, it is. Mechanically different games, though. Diablo 3 and Diablo 4, I think they're about the same. Dodge, hook, and kill. People don't remember the game. It's so disappointing. Butcher had a heart in rage, and Diablo doesn't. It's been a long time? Yes, I know, but not for me. So, against Diablo, you could... Like, the only hard thing in the game were the shadows, right? But you could outrun the shadows, and they would despawn. And then you wouldn't even have to fight them at all. So that's number one. Number two, Butcher, during the fight, there was, like, you know, his arena was, like, I think it was 9 segments. And each of those grates eventually gets caught on fire forever, which makes the fight progressively harder. So you have to kill the Butcher within a period of time, or the entire floor is literally lava, which makes it instantly harder than Diablo, because in Inferno mode, damage is a massive issue. And it doesn't really matter whether it's Butcher or Diablo, because both of them are going to one-shot you. So, like, the damage is effectively the same, even if Diablo did more damage. That's not a hard enrage, though. It is, because on Inferno mode, it would just instantly kill you. Nobody could survive in Diablo. Like, I remember Kungan, for example, one of the best barbarians in the game for Diablo 3, actually lost a hardcore character to just standing into Butcher's fire. And that was like a maxed out barbarian for Act 1 Inferno. And it just killed him in like 2 seconds. So it was a hard enrage. So, like, again, I'm just saying that the Diablo 3 bosses, I feel like they're about the same. I'm going to be honest, I feel like they're about the same. How do you remember that Kungan death? Because I have extremely good memory. I remember all of these bosses. That's why whenever people make these comparisons, they're just not accurate. Like, that's it. They're just simply not accurate comparisons. I don't know what to say.
Games, the core mechanics that make an RPG fun and satisfying to grind, I feel, are the same. So let's imagine if World of Warcraft was more like Diablo 4. Picture this. You just spent a bunch of time grinding levels, doing dungeons, raids, getting the best gear, becoming stronger. You go back to the starting area, and guess what? That boar you fought at level 2 takes just as many hits to kill as when you're level 70. Would you feel like a badass in this situation? No, you'd feel like an asshole. Like you just got duped into wasting your time playing an RPG that fooled you into thinking you were growing and getting stronger. Now, sure, you'd certainly have...
So, I do see why he feels that way, but this is the way that I see it. This is the good level scaling, this is the bad level scaling. Let's just use WoW as an example. Level 1, level 60, and this is tier 3. This is vanilla WoW. I think scaling from like the leveling experience is fine, to where everything is the highest level to a max level character. However, whenever I think scaling is bad, is whenever scaling occurs in the end game, and the player gets better gear and the monsters get more powerful. That's whenever I think scaling is bad, is because at that point it's effectively punishing the player for getting better gear, and the player is not able to feel the growth of their character. Now, I also think that happens in this section here, but I think that the positives outweigh the negatives in this section, whereas I don't believe that the positives outweigh the negatives in this section. So Diablo 4 scaling is bad by that definition? I mean, I think that, like, the scaling that they have for, like, World Tier 4, like this, look, I mean, maybe this is just me, but, like, I outscale the world so fucking hard, it doesn't even matter. I don't even recognize it. Like, by the time I was level 70, I was killing these mobs so fast that it was like nothing to me. People are making scaling like this is some kind of like a massive fucking issue. I was showing Zach my character today, who's over, and I killed a few elites in the open world. I killed them in one hit, one whirlwind. So like, we want to talk about, oh, scaling matters, and it makes you feel like you're not progressing. I feel like I'm fucking progressed, absolutely. I feel like I'm a level 100 barbarian with full fucking great gear. And I don't even think my gear is that good. Like, I don't know. That's the way I feel. I mean, I feel like I got way stronger, because I remember I entered world tier 4 at 60. It was like 58, actually, because I remember I couldn't equip the ancestral items. And then by the time that I was level 70, I was so strong that I had like basically full ancestral items, and nothing in the open world was a challenge at all. And yeah, the open world scaled with me, but so did my Paragon levels. And my Paragon levels, like the scaling in the open world, it was like this, right? It's like, so you have like the scaling, and this is the open world scaling. Oops. This is the open world scaling, and this is my scaling. So like, I was just way outscaling it. I'll be honest, like, as somebody who played it, like, I genuinely never thought the scaling was a big deal. I know a lot of people are disagreeing with me on this. I get it. But I just think that people aren't seeing the perspective that Blizzard has with, like, the friction that it causes with people to be able to play with their friends. And in a game that a lot of people are going to spend their time at 1 to 60, they want to make the friction between allowing people to play with their friends as minimal as possible. And because of that, scaling is necessary. And I understand that some people don't like it. I get it. But from my personal experience, scaling did not negatively affect my gameplay. That's how I feel. Now, if other people feel differently, that's fine. But I felt like I was getting stronger the entire playthrough. Of course, there's no challenge for you. Use the website to play the game. I mean, actually, I didn't really use the website. I used the website to do my Paragon levels. I looked at that for sure, but like I did all my talents on my own. I think you're wrong about people playing these games with friends a lot. Just look at PoE, where 90% of people play solo. Isn't that the point? Isn't that why Diablo doesn't want to be like PoE? It's kind of the point.
More abilities at level 70 than 2, but the point is, when you level up in Diablo 4, you don't get stronger, the enemies do, and you receive a skill point to deal with it. So because the challenge is consistently easy from start to finish, I was basically playing this game on autopilot, and if I wanted a game I could turn my brain off and play, I'd grind RuneScape. But Diablo is an action RPG. I want action. I want something that's fun, exciting, and fraught with danger. And if it's got some spooky, scary moments, that's a huge plus too. This level scaling mechanic is one of the most fucked up things I've ever seen in an RPG. It goes beyond simply making the moment-to-moment combat stale and repetitive. And you might be thinking, well, heck, man, what about Oblivion and Skyrim? Well, that's...
See, like, I don't see that. And the reason why I don't see that is because if there wasn't level scaling, he would just be fighting mobs that were the same equivalent power level, right? Because, like, if he's saying, like, oh, the 38 mobs are stronger, wouldn't he just be going to another area and dealing with those mobs instead? I don't understand it. Over-leveling and under-leveling is a thing. And at least you would have a choice. But, like, you wouldn't naturally do that. Like, what you would naturally do is you would just play through the campaign, right? I think that's what 90% of people do, is they play through the campaign, they maybe do a couple of dungeons. Like, what are we talking about? Like, this is, this is so weird, like, that people, I cannot understand this frame of mind. Because, like, in Diablo 3, for example, whenever you would go from Act 1 to Act 2, the mobs in Act 2 were so much harder than Act 1, I might as well have been fucking nerfed. You would dominate Act 1, and then Act 2 you would just get completely annihilated. So level scaling is just another way of doing that. So if you're having problems with stronger mobs, then, or like you feel like you're not making progress, I don't really see the big difference here. Especially whenever you're going through the campaign anyway and you're fighting different mobs anyway. It's an artificial way. Yeah, it is. Scaling takes away our choices. But what choice are you realistically making? You have to do the campaign, right? I'm totally not understanding this at all. There's no real choice. Like, you have to do the campaign in order to play the game. If you just go through the campaign, you will passively level up to 50. So it should be boring? I'm saying it was boring in Diablo 3. It's boring in every fucking game. Because it's the same fucking thing. Just because you're killing mobs that are a different color, it doesn't really matter. Diablo 2, it's not? I know in Diablo 2, I only did the Act 1. No, I think I did a little bit of Act 2 as well. So you don't agree with him? It's fine. Let's move on. Yeah, I will make it very clear. I don't think that scaling is a negative issue in Diablo 4. I really don't think so. I think people are massively overblowing it. I think that if you were going to make a list of problems that Diablo has, this would be like number 37. Even after level 70? Yes, even after level 70. Because if you're having problems with scaling after level 70, it's because you made a shit build and you're a bad player. It's got nothing to do with the game. It's not the game's fault you suck. That's what I think.
It's a lot different because you have some control over the difficulty, and the scaling only affects the types of enemies you encounter. So it's a lot different. To be fair, I think Diablo 4 excels in its enemy design. There's a ton of cool creepy
fuck that. You cannot fucking say that shit whenever that piece of shit is on the screen. Fuck this mob. Fuck that mob. Fuck this mob. Oh, I hate these pieces of shit.
Humans like those spider hosts and the walking ball sacks that spawn flies. The Balrogs return, as do the Fallen. Everything fits a theme based on the area it's in, and I like that. Enemies can spawn in unique ways.
Like those
they
mobs.
Unfreeze in the snowy areas or ambush you when you loot certain chests.
Yeah, a lot of the small, intangible type things like that with Diablo 4 are like S tier. They're really good.
Enemy movesets are flashy and fun to play around. Scaling fucks with the world and level design much more than you'd expect, because every corner of the game is now stuck at the same difficulty level. Therefore, no zone stands out or feels more challenging than the last. There is no sense of progression. Again, what if you took this scaling difficulty and added it to Elden Ring? What if you went to Caelid at the start and you didn't get your ass whooped by those giant dogs? Well, then that place wouldn't be as memorable. The desolate atmosphere and red-tinted sky would betray the tone of Caelid. The land of Caelid would not have this stigma among Souls fans of being a challenging, oppressive area of the game. And that's what makes it stand out. You get what I'm saying? When you give players far too much...
I do think that he's making a good point with this to an extent. And I think that there should be areas in the game that are like end-game plus areas. Like, absolutely. But Elden Ring is a completely different game than Diablo. It's a totally different experience.
Explore an open world and you don't gatekeep any sections of it, then they end up having nothing to look forward to and nothing to go back to. It feels like there's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing in the world of Sanctuary, and it doesn't matter what order I do it in, so it all just feels the same to me. Is this making any sense, or am I just talking out of my Diablo hole? Diablo. You know how in Breath of the Wild, after leaving the tutorial, you could go straight to Ganon's castle? I mean, you'd stand no chance, but that type of freedom is genius because you're given a sense of progression in the world and the different zones. You're not supposed to be here yet, but the designers still let you. I feel like this is just like basic open world RPG design 101. They dangle a super hard boss.
Yeah, I don't think that that's what they're going for with Diablo 4. I really just don't think so. I think that the open world is just something that they can use to get people to do hell tides. Yeah, that's not what the goal is.
Or tough enemy in front of you and say, come back when you're stronger, bitch. There's plenty of examples. The anti-guy in Paper Mario, the skeletons next to Firelink Shrine.
Ooh, that's
the
the sword.
Dancer in Tales of Symphonia. That's why going back to Slaughter the Tree Sentinel was so satisfying.
What do you mean going back?
You feel like you've grown stronger and gotten better at the game since he whooped your ass. And it's that feeling of growth and accomplishment that I tend to chase in RPGs. Unfortunately, in my 30 hours of playing Diablo 4, I never once had that feeling.
And I think this is actually an issue, and this point that he's making is good. I don't think that it matters with the campaign that much, because the campaign is just going to be an on-rails experience anyway. But I do think that this is one thing that separates Diablo from Path of Exile. And this is what I was talking about with my chart that I had already made here, is that like, the problem to me with scaling is that whenever scaling is happening above the max level or above, like, the max level threshold, where it's like, you know, the max level in Diablo is, like, basically 70. The max level in, you know, I would say, like, PoE is, like, 90 or something like that. I'd say 95. And like, imagine if Shaper scaled to like your level, or imagine if Elder scaled. And this is one thing that Diablo 3 missed out on a lot, is that there weren't a lot of fights at max level that you could benchmark yourself against that weren't just harder versions of existing fights. But in Path of Exile, there are a lot of different fights that you can do that have objective measurements of like damage and health that you have to overcome. And I think that's really what Actman is saying. I don't think that it's, I think that the value proposition of like having scaling for leveling and the campaign is more positive than negative. However, I think that the value proposition for end-game content of having scaling in endgame based off of your gear and your level past that, I think is also like it's more negative than positive. So like that's kind of what I mean, and that's why I didn't like Diablo 3, like Reaper of Souls, is I felt like in the seasons there was nothing new for me to do. Like example is like Greater Rifts. So like if I do a Greater Rift 30, what's the difference between a Greater Rift 30 and a Greater Rift 130? Zeros. Zeros behind the numbers. That's it. And that's the problem. That's why I don't like it.
Types of difficulty spikes, they just give me something to look forward to. I need a challenge I can't beat yet, or a super difficult optional boss thrown in my face, a forbidden area I can't access yet. That's what inspires me to grind and get better gear, to see more of the game, right? If you brought Diablo 4's version of scaled difficulty to other RPGs, you'd see how fucking atrocious it is. Like I said, I did the first capstone dungeon at level 48, so I was 2 levels below the recommended, and after 30 hours, like, this was the challenge I'm looking for. The boss is well designed. Dying to him made me pissed. I felt some tension.
Yeah, I got killed to that attack too.
Killing him and was running low on healing potions. My point is, why did I have to beat the game to start being challenged by it? Remember how simple?
Because you're really good at it. That's why. That's really the reason. It's because Actman is in the top probably 5 to 1% of players. That's actually the truth. Most people that play the game are fucking garbage. That's why. And before you say, no, that's not true, just remember the infographic that Blizzard put out that said that most players are still on the campaign 3 weeks after the game was released. So you honestly, like, is there anybody here who is delusional enough to think that you're the average player while you're staying up at 3 in the morning watching me watch a video about Diablo 4? Get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? Like, these are all, like, everybody here is a serious player of video games here, basically, compared to an average person. Like, have you ever been, here's a really good frame of reference. Have you ever gone to one of the WoW midnight releases? Did you ever go to one of them back in the day? Let me see what people say. Yes. Did you ever talk to any of the people that were there? Because I did. And they were so delusional and so uninformed. I remember I talked to a guy that didn't even know that ICC gave Frostworm Drakes for the release of Cataclysm. Literal garbage players. Absolute clueless dipshits. The people that are hoping to get the item level so they can queue into LFR, and they're looking up a guide for Hazelnutty Games for her to show them how to dodge the one mechanic. Those are the majority. Those are the masses. And that's the point that I'm making. Is that, of course it's easy for Actman. Of course it's easy for me. Of course it's easy for a lot of other people. But it's probably not easy for Dave, the electrician, who the last Diablo that he played was Diablo 2, and his hands hurt after playing with the controller for 45 minutes. Because he plays it on his PS5. Dave is the minority? No. No, Dave is not the minority. You are. We are. And that's the point. I'm sorry. Of course it's going to be easy. You know what I thought? I thought Elden Ring was really easy. I did. I thought it was an incredibly easy game. It was a joke compared to Sekiro. But that's not a bad thing. Cap? Jump attack halberd? So you're saying that... Oh my god. Our arguments tonight basically come down to just arguing that no one likes good games should play Diablo 4. I think that if you're expecting to get a 1,000-hour experience out of Diablo 4, you will be disappointed. Diablo 4 is a casual game made for casual players that has hardcore elements to it. And I think that's okay. If mostly serious gamers watch these videos, and it makes sense that he's saying Diablo 4 sucks for us and wants to inform us that Diablo 4 will be easier for us. Of course, I understand that, but I'm just saying to contextualize that mindset. I never disagree with you this much. This time I can't agree with you. Well, no, it's okay. Like, a lot of people don't understand it, but it doesn't make me wrong. I'm still right. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, that's why so many people bought and played Diablo 4.
Diablo 1 was, there were 16 levels, and each one got progressively more difficult and was filled with different and tougher enemies. The soundtrack and visuals would change as you got closer to Diablo's lair and hell itself. This is a very simple way to convey to the player that the challenge was evolving. This doesn't happen in Diablo 4. It doesn't matter when you go to hell. The challenge will be the same. It's like, this is a game about fighting the forces of fucking hell. Slaying demons. I'm not the Doomslayer. I can't be the scariest thing in the game. I want it to be challenging. I want to run into some big fuck off demon that whoops my ass. Blizzard likes to remind
when was the last time I had that experience with like running into something that was like really hard that whooped my ass? Because like, I don't know. When was the last time that really happened? Diablo 3? Like the Elden Ring Deathbird? Yeah, but that was just like me malding, right? I would say Jedi Survivor, like, but the reason why that frog was hard was because it was bugged. Like, the hitbox for the frog was bugged. Like, I think that if you understand how to beat that frog, it's actually such an easy boss. Uber Lilith? Well, no, that's just like, I don't even think that's, like, it's not really interesting, right? It's just like, if you make a mistake, you just die. Is that interesting? I think that's boring.
everyone that Diablo 4 was going back to its roots. They say darkness has returned.
Well, the initial direction was Diablo 2.
The art direction for Diablo 4 is really rooted in this idea of delivering on the fantasy of a dark, gothic, medieval world.
And I think, by the way, I'll say again, I think they completely nailed the art for Diablo 4. I think they totally fucking nailed it. I love the art design. I think it's amazing.
The initial art direction of the game in general was darker and grittier, and Diablo 2 was kind of the inspiration.
We wanted to bring Diablo 4 artistically more back towards like Diablo 2, the much darker style.
Major redesign to make them feel more grim, a little scarier, a little darker.
And when writing this next chapter, we really wanted to return to our darker roots.
Everything's a little darker, everything's more difficult.
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
What? Without me, you would have no victory. And its cost will be more than you can pay.
It's the darkest story we've ever told.
You have done well.
By the way, I think that Diablo 2 is like infinitely darker. It is like, it's not even, and by the way, I don't even think that it's remotely close.
Now I think you shall have your reward. What have I done to deserve
The story of Lilith and Inarius is the darkest story we've ever told.
The dark tone is at direct odds with the gameplay because you're slaughtering.
I don't even think that's the darkest part of it. I think just how bleak and fatalistic it is in general is what's so dark. Like, Marius doesn't even have a good reason for why he follows the Wanderer. Why does the wind blow? Yeah, it's just the bleak hopelessness of it is what's so good. Like, I actually thought, I sat around, I thought about those cinematics for a while. And I was like, what really is like the same vibe as this? And I thought maybe Conan, like the original Conan the Barbarian. I think that had a little bit of that vibe in it. And fuck. Mad Max? Maybe a little bit, yeah. I don't know. But like, it's just like, it's so hard to get something like that. Berserk, yeah, maybe Berserk does.
Endless hordes of trash mobs like it's nothing. You could compare this idea to Bloodborne or Bioshock or Dead Space, where the gameplay matches the tone of the locations and narrative. You see, the brilliance of Diablo 1's design is there are very few moments where you can let your guard down, even at the start, because even the trash mobs can surround you and kill your ass. This made exploration in Diablo 1 very tense and methodical. It was an action RPG, but it also felt like a survival game. But this whole aspect of surviving the forces of hell started to become more and more irrelevant when they released the second game. The issue with Diablo 1's design is that it doesn't fulfill the power fantasy modern gamers are looking for in a Diablo game. Like I said, the tastes have changed, and I accept that. Diablo fans nowadays want to kill hordes of demons that fill up the entire screen, and they want to feel like a badass. The problem I have with this is it makes most fights with basic enemies feel totally trivial and pointless, because they serve no actual threat. Now, this doesn't bother me in normal RPGs where you outlevel enemies, because of the scaling, that's not a thing. At some point, I realized that fighting random enemies on the way to a quest was a waste of time, because the quest itself will give me demons to fight, so I might as well skip all combat in the open world entirely. You see, it's not enough to make a somewhat linear ARPG that progresses and challenged through 5 different acts. They need to make
Dude, I need to play the Diablo. I need to play the Diablo 2 campaign. I have to do it, man. Like, if the Diablo, like, I need to fucking do this, because I want to be able to compare it to Diablo 2, but I only have Act 1. I need to play this just to see, because like I don't know what it's going to be like. I think I know what it's going to be like, but I'm not sure.
Diablo game into some sort of endlessly replayable grind fest in order to maximize player retention and justify a live service business model. Diablo 2 was more open, but it was segmented, you know? You couldn't just run to the Act 5 area at the start of the game. If they had to have the open world, I would have suggested make the campaign somewhat linear, and then once players beat the game, the world opens up. But there would be a lot more to it than that. The point is, when
Isn't that kind of what happens? Like, I don't know. I think that's what, like, in my mind, that's what happens, right? Or maybe I'm missing something. No? The world's already... Oh, you're saying the world's already open before then. Okay.
Throw hundreds and thousands of trash mobs at me, it trivializes the combat and therefore trivializes the threat hell itself poses to the world of Sanctuary. When I did finally get to hell, there was a brief moment of excitement. I was like, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start seeing some crazy...
Yeah, this part was really cool.
...ass enemies, and then it was the same demons I was fighting at the start of the game.
Oh, don't forget the best part, where the boss, right before you fight Lilith, is just the world boss with the same abilities. Very cool.
Even the unique bosses aren't all that challenging. Take the Astaroth battle, it's built up quite a bit. I mean, you're fighting a Hell Knight riding a giant 5-headed demon dog. Talk about fucking epic. This should be a major checkpoint in the player's skills, and this guy should be a total badass. Instead, he's a cakewalk because of scaling difficulty. I made a video a long time ago about...
By the way, I mean, yeah, #1 S-Fan died to that, I remember that. I think that Astaroth is fine in terms of difficulty. I feel like Astaroth is... Like, I think Astaroth is the same equivalent difficulty as Asmodan in Diablo 3. It's too easy? I don't know. I think that they're... Most casuals die there? Yeah, the fight was an absolute joke. I mean, sure, but like, what fight in a leveling campaign isn't an absolute joke? Well, Kitava? Do you want to see me killing Kitava? This league? Let's see me killing Kitava this league. Let's pull it up. Let's see how Kitava goes. Okay, here we go. Wow. One ability. Uh-oh. Yes. To be fair, I did dodge that. 2 abilities. Then the heart spawns. Bitch ass. Bitch ass. Yeah, they sold this from New World. I actually think Katava is the best boss in the game. Oh wow, I almost took damage. I just healed it. Actually, probably not best boss in like the whole game. Like he's the best leveling boss. Well, it's easy because it's well telegraphed. Like I think that's a good kind of easy. Two abilities there. If you're good at it, yeah. Wow. This is the end of the fight. So like I'm just not getting it, guys. This is all right. This is the last act, Katava. Here we go. Oh, he's dying even faster. He's taking damage so fast that like he doesn't even like he's bugging out. Oh, I forgot about meta build. Oh, so now. Oh my god. There's always who said Katava's hard? You can't win. You just can't win with these people. Oh my fucking god. Guys, why can't we just accept that the leveling campaigns in ARPGs are fucking easy? And especially they are fucking easy if you've played them 1,000,000 times. What are we doing?
The most important thing every video game needs, and it's challenge. If I'm not challenged, you know, then I don't see a point. I don't see a point to playing the game, and that's how I feel about Diablo 4. I might have been willing to grind to World Tier 3 and deal with the game's lack of difficulty up to that point if it weren't for the second crippling flaw, the skills. Now, at first I was having a blast with this game, and every time I leveled up, I was super pumped to spend the next 5 minutes looking at the skill tree and carefully considering what I would put my point in. I felt like my playstyle was constantly expanding until I unlocked my ultimate. Once you do that, the game becomes extremely repetitive as your playstyle is set in stone from then on, and you're only investing points in passive bonuses and stat increases. Sure, you can respec and swap out skills, but you're only allowed 5 abilities and a basic attack. Once you max these abilities out, you can only move laterally, not vertically. You can't expand your playstyle or your arsenal of tools. You can only swap things out. Does that make sense? Yes, this limitation.
I wish there was more customization in the talent tree. I think that there's too much customization in the Paragon tree, and I don't think there's enough in the talent tree. It's like too much in the Paragon tree. Like it's massively fucking complex, whereas the talent tree is like just so obvious that I just think it's kind of boring.
Does create trade-offs and forces players to think carefully about what to invest in and what type of playstyle they want. But I remember Diablo 2 doing this exact same thing and letting you have 8 abilities and a basic attack. And shit, 2 weapons you could swap between. Shit, man, even the original Diablo let you have, what, like 30 different abilities and magic spells? I guess this 5-skill limitation in Diablo 4 wouldn't bother me so much if it weren't...
You should have played a bard. You've only got 2 skills.
So tedious to change build, right? If you get to a super high level in Diablo 4 and decide to change your playstyle, you better have enough gold to change it back in case you hate it, because there is no loadout system, which I think would work if you could purchase like loadout slots and you could swap those out at the stash. I'd probably keep playing the game if that was a thing. But right now it just feels like Diablo 4 is insistent on restricting the most fun aspects of its gameplay.
That is a very good fucking point. I completely agree with this. Abso-fucking-lutely. There is no reason, like the Paragon respecs and like having loadouts, etc. This should absolutely happen. I completely agree with this.
For balance? Balance for what? PvP? Who the fuck cares? WoW lets you use like 500 different abilities. Balance for PvE? That's a laugh. We just established the game is too easy up until you hit level 50. Maybe it's the forced player.
I think the game is too easy until you do Uber Lilith. I think that's the problem. I think the game has no challenge at all until you get to the last boss in the game, and then every attack she does one-shots you with questionable hitboxes. I don't really think that, I don't think Elias is that hard. Bro, somebody says the Whirlwind Barb. I know. And every other class is better than that. So what does that tell you? You've done a 90+ Nightmare Dungeon? No, but what's new about that? Is there anything special in a level 90 Nightmare Dungeon that's not in a 60 or a 70? What's different? I'm pretty sure it's the exact same boss, right? Yeah, there's more zeros at the end. Right, okay. So there's nothing. Right.
To make trade-offs, and that seems more likely, but come on, man. It's boring.
A main cornerstone of D4 is play your way.
Between all of our different systems, you can really create a custom character in ways that was not available in previous Diablo titles.
You're a liar! You're a liar! In the eternal conflict between the high heavens and the burning hells, Diablo 4 offers you more choice than ever before.
This too is false.
Because
I'm curious, how many builds did barbarians have in Diablo 2? Like, how many, like, effective, like, good builds did they have? 10? People are saying 10 plus. Other people are saying 3 to 4. Less than 5. Yeah. Same as this game. Yeah, like, barbarians have Whirlwind, Hammer of the Ancients. They have Thorns. And I think there's, like, one more. Is there one? Double Slash. Yeah, Double Slash. Bleed. Yeah, Rend. Yeah, there you go. So I think that's about the same.
We have
Other
all
classes
these
could be
different ways
though.
to make your own character. There's a lot more possibility compared to previous titles of how you want to play, how you want to build your character.
Liar! You see, I had this fantasy of being a lightning-throwing, shape-shifting druid. I wanted to have a hybrid between those two builds, but I had to settle for just the lightning. Why can't we have more hotkeys? Is it a technical limitation? Like, because they're making...
I definitely agree with this. I think they should have made your ultimate ability something that was off the talent tree that you get to decide independently in the same way that you can with Lost Ark. I really like how Lost Ark has a separate button dedicated just for your just for your ultimate ability. It's made for console, so you're saying that console can't have another, like, you can't, like, console, like, controllers have, like, why can't you just hold like R2 and L2 at the same time and it does your ultimate? Like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Like, Final Fantasy 14 works on console. You think they can't, like, 6 buttons is the most they can add on a console? Get the fuck out of here. No. You can use control on Lost Ark, yeah. It's just ridiculous.
A game for consoles too? Well, that doesn't make sense because Dragon Age Origins, Fable, and other RPGs have had workarounds for that issue. But let's look at another top-down RPG that's also on console. Divinity Original Sin 2, one of the greatest video games ever made. You can invest points in the memory stat to unlock more skill slots. There's no limit, and you can do this with 4 different characters.
Oh, and so this is on controller? Okay, so this completely proves my point. Yeah, they should make a special slot just for your ultimate ability. Because, like, I just want to be able to use, like, that one ability. What's the ability they call, like, Iron Maelstrom? I think that's, like, the coolest barbarian ability. It's so awesome.
It's literally, like, that easy. Or at least it would be if when you leveled up, you can invest points in attributes, but you can't do that in Diablo until level 50. What the fuck? What were they thinking? Look, these are 2 radically different kinds of games, but the point is, as someone who's played a fuck ton of RPGs, I have a lot more fun with this than this. The limitations on skills and the backwards-ass design of scaling difficulty have basically killed any long-term enjoyment.
I don't, like, this is an issue, but it's not a big issue as somebody who plays PoE. And PoE, you can play most PoE endgame builds with a garage door opener. Let's be real. But it's the building is what matters, building the character. So I don't really care about having more buttons, but I just want to be able to use my ultimate abilities.
I could have had with this game. You blew it! Diablo 4 is plagued by so many what the fuck were they thinking type of issues. It's almost comical.
What the fuck?
You know how when PC players play a first-person shooter and they lose their mind if they can't control the field of view? That's exactly how I felt playing Diablo 4. Like, bro, why is the camera so zoomed in? They got custom game.
Yeah, it's always sad whenever you're playing and you go into a boss fight and you're like, oh wow, now I can finally see what's going on in the game. And like you realize what they've taken away from you.
in Warcraft 3 that lets you zoom out further than what the base game lets you. Dude, zooming out is one of the biggest features they flaunted when they were promoting StarCraft Remastered. I just don't get it. Look, I'll show you, okay? Here's the FOV in the original. Character ain't too big, looks great. Here's Diablo 2, same thing.
I think you actually have a very large field of view in Diablo 2. Like, look at this. Like, this is really nice. This is great.
Even Diablo 3 somehow got this right. And then, well, what the fuck? Jeez. Throughout my playthrough, I kept spamming the scroll button in vain, hoping it would zoom out.
Yeah, he's actually right about this. I didn't even notice it was this bad. Wow. Yeah, that's... Holy shit.
Never does.
Yeah, he's definitely right about this. Absolutely.
Phone. You can zoom out? I've been playing for 20 hours, and now when I'm in hell near the end of the goddamn game...
Yeah, finally. Like, yeah, it's like now, it's like finally I can see what's happening on the screen.
Finally zoom out? Why couldn't I play the rest of the game like this? Why does it only zoom out at parts where the developers want to show off the level design? The level design's beautiful, by the way.
It is.
Why do I even have to complain about this? It just shouldn't be an issue. Just let me zoom out.
It's so weird.
I figure we might as well discuss the side content Diablo offers. Well,
I would discuss the side content. However, I don't really know what it is.
Most of it is pretty fun initially, like the dungeons, some side quests have interesting bits of story, and the strongholds are fun, lengthy battles. But these activities get old real quick. It's pretty obvious they had a quantity over quality mentality to ensure there was a lot of content for players to...
Can't wait to do that content again for Season 1. That's going to be so fun.
Grind and complete. So there's 5 main areas in the game, and by completing the side content, you earn renown, which lets you unlock important things like extra skill points, more potion capacity. It's pretty much necessary to max these things out after you beat the campaign. Problem is,
I think the issue with the side quests is that I would have done the side quests for my own enjoyment, but the reason why I didn't do them for my own enjoyment is because I had to do them in order to complete the campaign, and in order to complete my renown. So like it turned the side quests into like an obligation that I need to min-max as quickly as possible.
Once again, as a result of the live service, Blizzard intends to reset the renown you've earned with every season. Why is this a problem? Because most Diablo fans fucking hated grinding for it.
I don't... Oh, there it is. There it is. Let's get it. I don't know why they are holding on to the idea that refarming renown will be fun.
It won't be.
I don't want to do the same side quests.
I don't
again.
either.
They're fucking annoying. And
Nope.
they're a waste of time.
True.
I don't want to have to re-clear the same pointless dungeons for no reason.
You've probably seen people say stuff like,
Absolutely.
If I don't want to have to grind renown again. If I have to grind renown again, I'm not playing anymore. And I'm sitting over here thinking to myself, so if the side content is that bad, if it's so boring that you never want to experience anything like it ever again...
It's not that it's boring. It's that I don't want to have to do it. It's a very different thing. Like, it's the content is okay, but it's okay the first time. It is boring. So, no, I will make the argument of this. Going through the side quests, they are all voice acted. Some of them are actually quite good. I like the side quests, like where you have to fight the girl who's like possessed by the demon and she gives the thing to her mom. Like, it's not that they're boring in that way. It's that I don't want to have to do them twice. I mean, I love doing, I'm trying to think of like another quest line, like some of the Warcraft quest lines. They're nice to do, but I don't want to have to do them regularly. Like every 3 months, I have to redo the campaign quest line for the Shadowlands. That's what the issue is. I think that doing it once isn't boring. That's my point. It's not boring the first time. I think it's actually okay, and it adds texture. It adds texture, and it makes the world more robust. I genuinely think that the side quests are adds to the game and not negatives. But having to do them every single season is a massive fucking minus.
And that's not content, dude. Those are chores. You're at the grocery store right now.
Absolutely.
Checking off a list. You know, maybe these activities are worth re-examining and redesigning to make grinding renown a fun experience so that players are open to doing that again. In the promotional videos, Blizzard kept reiterating how much content there is. and that players will never run out of things to do.
It's been created to feel full of things to encounter, full of secrets to discover, full of characters to interact with, full of stories to find.
You have so many activities that you might run into.
Diablo 4 offers so much more for players to do than ever before.
We've really crafted the world to feel like there's always something just around the corner to find.
Every single time you come back to play Diablo 4, there's going to be new stuff for
You'd be out of rage by now, let's be honest.
you to experience.
There's over 120 dungeons to play through and find. We've got almost 150 dungeons in the game.
There's going to never...
the amount of dungeons they have in a game, I think it's about like 10. And some of the dungeons have a different boss at the end. The boss, you could say, is randomized. There's like, yeah, 10 to 12 dungeons.
Be an absence of something to do.
It's really just going to be a way to keep coming back and experiencing more Diablo 4.
It's usually a red flag when I hear developers talk like this, because what they're actually trying to say, if you translate it, is our game is going to have endless amounts of boring, tedious, and shallow activities. They focus...
Well, the worst part about that is that now you have Diablo players that are going and they're trying to ask Blizzard to add more boring, tedious activities because they're bored because they played the game 200 hours. Like, I am losing my fucking mind seeing people say this shit. It's driving me fucking crazy. Because I don't want to see them turn... I don't want to see us turn them into Legion. Oh, you're bored? Okay, here's artifact power. Have fun. Absolutely not. So, I actually, again, I don't think farming renown the first time is bad at all. I don't. I don't think so. I think it's fine. But it is fundamentally one-time content. It's one-time content. And Blizzard knows that doing quests is one-time content because that's why they let you skip the campaign. What are we doing? What are we talking about?
It's on the scale of content instead of its quality. They prioritize the grind instead of the fun, the exciting, and the new. I don't know, man. I guess I just don't get it. I don't understand the appeal of having my progress and my character reset every few months and then having the devs try...
Well, I think that's fine because that's the way ARPGs work. And I understand why he feels that way, and I don't mind the seasonal approach because actually, now that I think about it, saying that's the way ARPGs work is kind of like just an appeal to tradition, which is like not very good. I don't mind that. I think that's fine because it creates renewed excitement in the game and they're supposed to, you know, change the flavor of the game. Sure, that's fine. Yeah, the argument we always say this way, yeah, I don't think that it's that big of a deal.
To pass it off as a feature and not a corrupt save file. You know, getting to level 40 and saving up enough money to buy a mount in WoW Classic was a big deal. I felt so accomplished after I did that, and that I could explore the world much more efficiently. But
remember, I spent all my gold on plate gear because I said, listen, boys, yeah, I might not get there as fast as you, but whenever I get there, you're gonna know it. I was like, fuck, it's 16.
More importantly, Blizzard didn't take
I bought all my plate armor
for 3 months and say, go do all that shit
I think
again,
I'm out to like
asshole.
50 or like 45 or something.
What's next on the agenda? Stats and loot. The bread and butter of most RPGs and the main reason people play them for hundreds of hours. On some occasions, you do get a nice reward for completing a quest or defeating a boss, like this amulet that summons a barrier or the Mother's Embrace ring you get from Lilith. But these are extremely rare in the campaign. Now, it might just be me, but
I mean, like, I think that the one type of friction that feels really bad in the campaign is out-leveling your legendaries. That's what feels really, really bad. I hated that. Because then it's like, oh, I don't want to, you know, imprint this because then I won't have it at a higher level. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but it did kind of feel bad.
Find the majority of loot drops in Diablo 4 to be terribly unexciting, to the point where I hardly read what most items actually do. And at a certain point, I just walk past chests because they rarely hold anything of interest. I think
I open most chests because they have a chance to spawn an elite. But yeah, I can see that.
The loot is extremely boring for a few reasons. Number one, it all looks extremely generic. Maybe it's because I'm playing as a druid and just the druid items are boring, but when I look at the loot in Diablo 1 and 2, it just looks way fucking cooler. You got like the skull.
Oh no, you have these. These are in Diablo 4. You just have to go to the store. You have to, so if you open up the menu and then you go to the shop, so you'll see those items on the shop. Yeah, no, they're in Diablo 4, guys. Yeah, what do you mean?
Shield or Arcane's Valor. I mean, look at the helmets and how colorful and different they are. But in Diablo 4, when I find a pair of boots, I feel like it's the same fucking pair of boots I've already seen 100 times. Am I the only one who feels this way? Am I missing something? Am I tripping?
I like the way my barbarian looks in Diablo 4. I do. I think he looks cool.
You know, maybe it also has to do with the fact that every item takes up the same amount of space and the icons all look so similar that in my brain, it all morphs together. There are very few moments where finding a piece of loot is genuinely exciting in Diablo 4. And part of that is because I'm also not a huge fan of RPGs that dump a bunch of meaningless numbers and stats into the menu.
Well, to be fair, those shouldn't be meaningless numbers and stats, but they are, because Blizzard doesn't know how to balance their game. Resistances just don't work. Oops. They just, ooh, we did that, ooh. I cannot believe people are okay. It'll be in season 5 they'll fix resistances. Yeah, no, it'll get delayed from season 2.
And
because of COVID.
Remember how awesome it was in WoW when you got that first item that boosted your stats instead of just armor?
Oh, yeah. Dude, 4 strength, 4 stam, leather belt. Oh. Level 18?
Yeah. I think part of the reason this clip became a meme is his excitement mirrored our excitement. And that was for a belt that he found at level 18. I have never been even close to this excited for any item in Diablo 4. When appraising the value of an item in an RPG, it really helps to understand the game's mechanics and what certain stats
So this is a problem, is that in order for you to understand the mechanics, that would require Blizzard to understand the mechanics. And therein lies the problem. They don't. They don't understand their own mechanics.
Actually improve. If the stats and numbers are too convoluted, then players aren't going to understand or feel any tangible benefit from increasing them, right? Again, you look at items in WoW, it's like plus 17 stamina. What does plus 1 stamina do? 10. Plus 10 HP. Okay? You can easily wrap your head around that. But because the sense of progression in Diablo 4 is so fucking skewed, now you find an item that's like plus 9 to all stats. And you're like, what the fuck? That sounds awesome. I'm only level 20. And then you look at what 1 point of strength does. And what does it do? Gives you 1 point of armor. Okay, well, I have 3,000 points of armor. So this is worthless to me.
I mean, I think at max level, and like the thing is, like if he had stuck around and theory crafted the game a lot, he would know that, you know, obviously your main stat scales at a different level than other stats do, and having main stats and all stats is actually usually the meta for at least barbarians, because it allows you to hit different paragon bonuses, etc. But like, while you're leveling, which is like mainly his experience, yeah, it feels like shit. Main stats suck. Not worth staying around to figure out their trash system. And that's the thing that I'm making, right? That's the point that I'm making, is that I tried to hammer this so much on the beta. I said, please do not let this game's leveling experience feel like shit. And I said the leveling experience for the Druid and the Barbarian especially feels like absolute fucking garbage. Blizzard didn't fix it, and now we're watching a video with 1 million fucking views. This video has 1 million views, number 13 on trending, because nobody wanted to fucking listen. They said, oh no, it's good that the game is bad early on, that way you have to earn being able to have a good time. Well, guess what? Nobody spends 70, they already earned it. They had to work fucking a whole day for this. It's $70 fucking dollars. That's insane. I'm so mad. They tried to copy Pee-wee and failed. The difference is that, like, I don't even want to.
I can't get over this. Like, strength doesn't improve your damage or nothing. What does strength typically do in an RPG?
Makes you hit harder.
You want to use this big ass weapon? Strength requirement. You want to do more damage? Strength. Bro, even in Warcraft 3, the strength stat did more than what it does in Diablo 4. And that wasn't even an RPG. I've never played an RPG like this where the core stats felt so fucking useless. So meaning.
Play retail, wow. So you got 2 you got damage and you have health. Do you want damage? Okay, strength. Health, stam. Agility, nope. Intellect, nope. Spirit, nope. Gone. Yeah, I mean, that's just really how it is.
To increase. This is apparently what the entire Paragon board is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk about that shit. How do you balance a game that has skill trees this big by making each point basically worthless? Diablo 1 did it
and it's still not balanced.
Better. I cannot for the life of me understand what they were thinking. The reason I bring all this up is because so many of the stats on items just, I look at it and I'm like, well, this doesn't mean anything to me, or it doesn't feel important. League of Legends champion.
Yeah, overpower. Like, I think that they, I mean, we have it in like PoE, right? Like, light radius. Oh, just thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. That's just what I needed. Thorns. Yeah. There are a number of stats in PoE that are literal shit. But, like, I feel like there should be, like, I feel like the Diablo, like, so these are the stats that I think Blizzard should get rid of with Diablo. Remove close damage, remove distant damage, remove, overpower damage, remove healthy damage, and remove injure damage. All of these stats are fucking boring. I think they are absolute fucking garbage. They don't need to exist. They're not fun to scale. They're not interesting. They're weird. Shrine duration. I actually don't mind shrine duration. I think that's fine. And if you want me to be honest, I think they probably should remove vulnerability. I think that's probably a good idea. Because vulnerability is clearly, it's too strong for versus everything else. It makes the entire game, like, exist around it. It's too good.
Champion design suggests that giving players fewer but more meaningful passives is far more desirable than a bunch of passives that offer minimal changes, because you're not going to notice most of this shit at all, especially when the enemies are...
Well, I don't think Ackman even knows this. Resistances literally don't work to the extent that Blizzard made a fucking announcement saying, guys, hey, you know, we had some numbers and, you know, the numbers just didn't add up, and so, you know, gotta wait for like 6 months until it's ready. It's my bad. Oops. Yeah, I still cannot believe that. Like, by the way, guys, plan on playing a sorcerer for season 2, because sorcerer and necro scale off of resistances, and they're going to balance sorcerer and necro survivability off of not having resists. So what's going to end up happening is in season 2, whenever they add resists, sorcerer is going to be even more tanky because its main stack is int, and int scales resist. And it's going to be the same thing with fucking the other one, necromancer.
Scaling with you. There's so many different damage modifiers, you know, complex number calculations, like damage to close enemies.
Damage to stunned enemies I think is very boring. I don't like damage to stunned enemies at all. Basic skill damage I also think is kind of boring, but it's not that bad.
Damage to distant enemies. Well, where's the stat for damage to enemies at a moderate distance? Why don't you have that as well? Why is it necessary to have like 8 different stats to calculate how much damage something does? Why do resistance...
Well, it's that the stats that calculate how much damage it does, the way that they scale off of each other doesn't feel good. It felt way better in Diablo 3.
Reduce incoming physical damage as well as magical damage. It's just like, I just think this is...
Yeah, and I think also armor should not reduce magic damage at all. Armor reduces physical damage. Resistances resist magic damage. That's the way the game should work. Armor should not have anything to fucking do with magic. It's just how I feel.
Like the worst stat system I've ever seen in an RPG. It defies belief to me. So again, going back to the original, enemies didn't respawn and levels were finite, so you were encouraged to kill everything, pick up every item, and sell the shit you weren't using. You could sometimes buy a really good item with gold, and in the later stages purchase elixirs to boost stats, and of course stock up on potions. But Diablo games, in my opinion, even the first 2, always had a way of making gold feel kind of worthless. That has never been more apparent than in Diablo 4. It's like you'd only have 2 options: buy the shittiest gear you'll never use for dirt cheap, or drop all...
I don't know about this one. I mean, how many of you guys have bought a really good item off a vendor? I have. Yeah, and like he didn't play the game long enough to like to do that. But like, yeah.
Of your money on one overpowered item. I hate having just these two choices. So when you keep checking the shop,
I think gold actually has a great value in Diablo 4. I have no complaints with gold in Diablo 4. I think it's fine.
Inventory in Diablo 4 and it's never anything good, or it's something that requires you to drop all your money so you can't respec, you just stop checking. This blows my mind. The entire concept of purchasing items and equipment in an RPG is superfluous. That's a big fucking problem. I never once in my entire playthrough purchased a piece of equipment from a store.
He's actually making a good point here that these items would be much more better if you literally just took a 0 off. They simply cost too much for a player while they're leveling up to invest into them. I would never think to buy an item off a vendor during a leveling process because of that.
Yeah, sure, I did things like upgrade my potions or craft elixirs or upgrade my gear, but I never bought anything. In fact, this item has more item power, but the ring I
should go with this one. We should keep this.
Currently have equipped has higher resistances. So like why the fuck would I ever buy this or that or that? Imagine creating an RPG where the in-game currency feels worthless. At one point I stopped trying to pick up gold entirely if it was 2 seconds out of my way. And again, because the value of items scales and everything is progressively getting more and more expensive, I feel like I'm only able to afford 1 or 2 items at any particular store. So I'm not about to drop all my cash on something.
Yeah, it's too much. Like, I would never buy an item off a vendor while leveling. They should change that, because you should want to, like, the idea of buying a cool item off a vendor, I think that's cool. That's good. That's what it should be. I don't know why it's not like that. Dude never rerolled a single item. Well, the thing is, like, he's giving his perspective as a player who stopped as soon as he got to World Tier 3 because he was bored of the game. So, like, that's his perspective. He's not giving his perspective as a level 100 Uber Lilith destroyer. Like, yeah, he stopped at 48.
And I'm just going to end up outscaling in an hour or two. I think you've royally fucked up the in-game currency when taking 3 seconds to double back and pick up a pile of gold feels like a waste of time. So many facets of this game feel superfluous to me, and I'm not saying they are superfluous, it's just how they feel to me. So in a nutshell, my playstyle eventually developed into, okay, I'm skipping chests because those are worthless. I run through all combat in the open world because it's unnecessary.
I don't like how there aren't... I think there should be, like, Uber events that come from, like, chests and shrines. I don't like how there's, like, the events that spawn, there's only, like, 3 events that spawn, and that's it. Like, there should be a chance whenever you open a normal chest that, Duriel spawns. Surprise, bitch. There he is. And he's really hard. He's really fucking hard. But you know what? If you kill him, you get, like, a guaranteed unique item, which is going to be garbage because all the uniques are bad. But, you know, you get one, and it looks cool. 1 in 5 million hour chance. Yeah.
If gold isn't in my path, I don't go back for it. I skip through sections of dungeons so I can complete them faster. I skip dialogue and side quests so I can grind the renown faster.
Yeah, that's the problem, is I wouldn't have skipped the side quest dialogue if I didn't have to grind the renown, because I could do it at my own pace.
I don't go into the cellars anymore, and it's just like, dude, I'm just skipping the game. I'm just skipping past all this shit. This is the game. All right, Diablo 4, you've got one
I think, by the way, like, this is what's going to happen with any game. You see this with Path of Exile too. Like, it always makes me, like, upset whenever I see people do PoE maps and not pick up Chaos Orbs. Even though I know that it's, like, it's not worth it because they're running some fucking, you know, like, winged scarab, cemetery, 100% delirious map. But I see them and it's like, oh, you're right there. Just get it. Just get it. But, like, that's just the way that people play ARPGs. Like, it's just you're going to continue optimizing your gameplay.
Chance to redeem yourself, and that's what this story. Is it any good? Well, I'm pleased to say that the opening cutscene is pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is.
It begins with some grave robbers who are in way over their heads. They stumble across a power, the likes of which they can't even comprehend. And immediately the game establishes that sense of terror and fear that was sorely lacking in Diablo 3. Then your character arrives in a town, you clear a dungeon of demons out
I love the beginning of this game. It is so fucking good.
For them, you head back and start celebrating with the townsfolk when all of a sudden, oh shit, you're poisoned. This guy brings you to a shack where they perform some kind of satanic human sacrifice ritual, and it's like, okay, all right. You got me invested. So while there are some decent moments here and there, after the introduction, the story takes a fucking nosedive like Amelia Earhart. The beginning and end of Diablo 4 are the game's strongest parts, narratively, likely because there are only 2 pre-rendered cutscenes that sandwich the rest of the story. Almost everything that happened in the middle is just a blur to me, which is strange because the setup for the plot is very interesting. You've got Lilith and Inarius, an angel and a demon who created Sanctuary. This is the first time we've seen like an archangel and a demon form some kind of an alliance. They seem to be the only entities on each faction with a desire to end the war between heaven and hell, or at least escape it. One of the major issues with the story is the parts that don't include Lilith, Mephisto, or Inarius are terribly mundane. Characters are swapping in and out, and they get killed off, you know, the scene after they're introduced.
I think that the story was okay, it was fine, but I didn't think it was like groundbreaking or amazing or anything like that. I'm trying to think, like, what would I like in the story? I think that the story will only be good based off of what happens in the expansion story. Because the story sets up an incredible foundation for, like, Mephisto to have been manipulating this entire thing from the beginning. But, like, we don't know if that's the case or not. Because I think that, yeah, it's going to need a little bit more context.
Some of them I even forget their name, like this guy who was in the tree. Nafane, I totally forgot he existed until I went back and watched my own footage. I think Diablo 4's story is further proof to me that Blizzard's style of writing has deteriorated severely in the last decade. You know, if you compare the end of act cinematics in Diablo 2 to 4, I mean, it's a major difference.
Now, we are truly alone.
This is one of the things that I really liked. I liked how this guy died. That reminded me of Diablo 2. Bleak, random, hopeless, pointless, meaningless, and it was just, you're dead. He died like an idiot, yeah.
Angel and demon, father and mother are dead. I heard later that he was defeated.
You still at the wall? Are you serious? Yeah, I liked it. Because it reminded me of Diablo 2. It's just that nothing else was like that either.
In Hellforge, all except one.
The big difference is in Diablo 2, they actually show the events that Marius, the narrator, is talking about, as opposed to just like some boring static shots of like a horse walking through the snow. It's why I've seen like this.
Lilith and Astaroth had made a deal, and we were the ones who would pay the cost.
Is nowhere near as interesting or engaging as this.
Take it. Take it, take it. I'm glad this is finally over, Tyrael. Everything happened exactly as Lilith wanted. We just danced to her music.
It's why I'm more interested in this.
Oh, I failed, Tyrael. I couldn't do as you asked.
And not so much this.
Donan was shattered. His mind on grief, not her.
I think that Actman really has a point on this. I think that he does. Is whenever you side by side it, Diablo 2 just completely clears it. It just totally fucking clears it.
What answers? Look what the stone has done to me.
Playing Diablo 4 is like dating a pretty woman. The kind that the longer you talk to her, the more you realize she has the personality of a tampon. Wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle. Yes, there are hundreds of NPCs in several different towns, but the world design of Diablo 4 is a byproduct of the gameplay, less so the story. Now, what do I mean by that? What are those words that are coming out of your mouth, Axeman? Let me explain. The open world isn't there to service some kind of overarching or branching narratives. It's to create a big-ass map that the developers can litter with tons of activities to keep players busy and keep them grinding. Yeah. You might have noticed that almost none of the optional dungeons in this game have any sort of story or history behind them. But I find the most immersive game worlds are those that tell a story while I'm playing through them.
That's a very good point he brings up. I think this is definitely true. Is that, like, there are a couple of the dungeons that you do have to do a quest in, but the quest isn't really transformative in any way. Here are the dungeon quests. You do the dungeon, and there's a mob that you kill, and that's the quest mob. That's it. There's not anything really unique in it or anything else.
Now, if you want to understand what's so wrong with Diablo 4's world, we need to look back at the first game, because it's the polar opposite of everything Diablo 4 is trying to be. I think Blizzard knows that Tristram is the most memorable location in the series, because in every sequel they find a reason to take you back there. Thing is, Blizzard doesn't seem to understand why Tristram is such an iconic and memorable location.
The music.
Oh yeah, the music does some pretty heavy lifting, but the main reason comes down to this phrase: less is more. Bigger isn't always better. Just ask my gargantuan penis. Diablo 1 took place in a single location, Tristram, and there were 8 characters that lived there, a couple cows, and a cathedral that led down to hell where the bad guys were. Each character offered a combination of advice, exposition, and insight.
So I actually think that some people might argue that this is because it was a product of its time, but I would draw a direct parallel with Diablo 2 with Halls of Torment. Is that I absolutely love the area that you begin in Halls of Torment because of this exact same reason. And this game came out this year. So yeah, I think this is something I've complained about with Blizzard in the past too. Like, you know, unable to do less is more.
For the player. Whenever you got a quest in Diablo 1, you could ask each of the 8 residents about it. This added important context and massive build-up to each quest.
I saw what Farnham calls the Butcher, as it swathed a path through the bodies of my friends. He swung a cleaver as large as an axe, hewing limbs and cutting down brave men where they stood.
I know more than you think about that grisly fiend. His little friends got a hold of me and managed to get my leg before Griswold pulled me out of that hole. I'll put it bluntly. Kill him before he kills you and adds your corpse to his collection.
By the light, I know of this vile demon. I don't know what he used to slice open his victims, but it could not have been of this world. Beware if you plan to battle this fiend.
The Butcher is a sadistic creature that delights in the torture and pain of others. You have seen his handiwork in the drunkard Farnham.
Big cleaver, killing all my friends. Couldn't stab him, had to run away.
So everyone in town is telling you this guy is a big fucking menace, but from their own unique perspective. This added realism to the world of Diablo and its characters. It created build-up and tension to every quest and every boss fight. There's a reason Blizzard keeps bringing back the Butcher in newer Diablo games, and it's because this quest from the first game is just that iconic. But why?
The spirits of the dead are now avenged.
Well, part of the reason is for every quest in Diablo 1, you get to consult the same 8 characters. This makes the plot easy to follow as it's not being communicated through like 40 different characters.
Why is it that it's the best? I think that a lot of fantasy designers nowadays are unable to stop iterating. And I think, again, going back to Halls of Torment, I think that's one of the appeals of the game, is its simplicity. I think the best example that I can use, I'll use 2 examples of 2 movies. The first one, my best example, is Conan the Barbarian. Simple as fuck. Completely simple. There's nothing crazy about it. There's nothing like abstract, really. I mean, there's a bit of abstraction, but like not a whole lot. And it was just like very raw. There was not a lot of crazy stuff going on in terms of like magic and all this other stuff. It was raw, grounded, focused, to the point. And I think the other one that I would use is Willow. Willow was also like a movie that was very, it was like very simple in a way. And I think that the simplicity in a story like that is oftentimes what can make it appealing. And I think that a lot of times, like, writers try to write things with, like, 7 different layers of intention and focus. And, like, with Neyrelle, for example, in Diablo 4, there's, like, all of these different emotional ties that she has and, like, focuses that she has. Like, is she, you know, like, good or bad? Is she a Haradrim? Is she, like, going to be, like, affected by, like, Mephisto? Like, I'm not really sure, right? I have no idea. But, like, if you compare that to, I think a good boss is like a Razageth. People liked Razageth in Dragonflight because she was just an absolutely crazy fucking bitch. That's it. Just an absolute, completely crazy bitch. And there wasn't really a lot to unpack there. Like, there wasn't anything going on. It was just pretty fucking simple. And I think that's what sometimes is better than adding in a million layers of complexity to try to show off that you're a good writer.
Diablo 4 is like the exact opposite. It feels like once again the designers had to justify this open world design by having you constantly jumping from one area to the next.
Yeah.
No one person, quest, or area is given enough screen time to become truly memorable aside from a handful of moments. Prime example of this style of writing is the Tree of Whispers. It's an ancient tree decorated with the severed heads of those who pursued its knowledge. Now that sounds fucking awesome, but this place has barely any build-up to it at all. You can't really ask characters to prod their knowledge of it. Lorath and Donan might have a couple lines, but it's nothing deep. So it makes this ultra cool area of the game feel far less important than the world is trying to make it out to be. What it boils down to is, ironically, the original Diablo, which takes place in a single town consisting of 8 characters, tells a vastly more interesting, relatable, and immersive story than all of the towns and people in Diablo 4 combined. Now, maybe that's just nostalgia squirting out my ass, but let me convey this point with a question. Can you name a single blacksmith in Diablo 4?
Good one.
That's what I thought. Remember
Good one.
Griswold?
Whoa, what can I do for you?
Of course you do. Now run with me on this for a second. Instead of having one blacksmith who's like an actual character that you can talk to, who also repairs your shit and sells you stuff, we now have 75 soulless, empty blacksmiths scattered across the land of Sanctuary, none of whom play any role in the story or contribute at all to the world building. This doesn't apply to just the blacksmiths in the world of Diablo 4. It applies to all vendors in the game. They serve no purpose outside of gameplay, which I guess it's fine. Like, it's lazy, but it's fine. But do you see the conundrum? Since Diablo 4 is an
I can see what he's
game,
saying here. Like, I definitely can. I don't think it's a big deal because they just serve the purpose of gameplay. But yeah, it's definitely not a good thing.
70 blacksmiths and leave only 5 or whatever, then it becomes tedious to find
Yeah, I can
them.
see his point,
And Blizzard
yeah.
clearly didn't want to go through the effort of writing each blacksmith to be an actual character, and I don't blame them for that.
Sure.
My point is that in so many ways, Blizzard seems to sacrifice world building for an open world. Now, call me crazy, but I think...
Sacrifice world building for an open world. I feel like somebody who did all of the side quests and listened to it more would probably not feel that way as much. But because everybody was incentivized by their rewards to complete them as quickly as possible, I think that people would feel this even more. There's 213 side quests though? Yeah. And I think also they probably should have narrowed that down. Make blacksmiths great again? Yeah. I did every side quest. They actually open up the world really good. Yeah, but why would somebody do them if they don't give any good rewards and you just have to complete them for renown? You see what I'm saying? Right? Like, and that's the whole problem.
Vendors,
they're
and
turned into like
play
an
important
optimization
role in a video game, especially if that game is an RPG.
Don't get yourself killed. Neither of us want to see you go hollow.
Welcome to the Circus of Value.
Got something that might interest you.
No, I think all NPCs should play some kind of role in an RPG or offer a slice of life. But outside the characters in the main story, most of the people who inhabit Sanctuary aren't memorable or important at all. And therefore,
I think that having like a game that's MMO light, like kind of how Diablo 4 is, I don't think you can expect every NPC to have a story. I can see his point. And you're definitely not as attached. Like, I don't feel like I'm really that attached to any of the characters in Diablo 4 that much.
neither is Sanctuary itself. I don't know, man. The scaling difficulty and restrictive skill trees make the core gameplay feel extremely easy, boring, and repetitive, and with some slight changes that they'll probably never do, would improve the game vastly. The loot is uninteresting. Most of the game's content is shit I just ended up skipping trying to get to the fun part, but I never really got to the fun part. In the end, for all of Blizzard's efforts to make Diablo 4 a massive open world game with tons of replayability, content, and depth, it ends up being no deeper than the puddle in my backyard. And that is why Diablo 4 is so bad.
I think this was, he brought up a lot of good points, and I think that also, like, while I disagree with some of the points, and I do think that if he had played, like, for example, like, gold having no value, like, that's not true if you play the game to, like, end game. But the issue is that, oh, well, if you play it for 30 hours, then it's different. Whoa. Oh. Like, whenever I played Halls of Torment, for example, I had fun on my first run. The first run that I did of this game, I had a lot of fun. The game should be good right from the beginning. And I think that is something that Diablo 4 lacked a lot, especially with playing Barbarian and especially with playing Druid. I do think Diablo, I really like Diablo 4. I think it's a good game for what it's meant to be. Now, I understand that there's a lot of people that might disagree with that. I like it. I think it's a good game, and I think also, like, the way that I rate the game, the way I rate a live service game is very different than the way I would rate a game like Jedi Survivor or Tears of the Kingdom or Final Fantasy 16. I think that over time, Diablo 4 will improve and get better, and I feel like I got my money's worth out of playing it. I also put over 1,000, probably multiple thousands of hours into Diablo 3. I've put multiple thousands of hours into Path of Exile. So I am an ARPG player. So of course I'm going to like this game, right? But I am not blind to its setbacks and like its drawbacks. And I think that Actman brought up a number of very good ones. And I think that the biggest thing with like what he's saying is that these are friction points these are first impressions friction points. And those are the worst kinds of friction points to have. Because if people aren't having fun at the beginning of the game, they're not going to get to the end of the game to enjoy it. Like, whenever I was leveling in World of Warcraft, dude, at like level 7, I was fucking hyped. I was like, this is the best game I've ever played. Like, I'm going to put on some fucking Nirvana and just game out. I'm going to pop off. Like, there should never be a point where the game isn't fun at the beginning. I really hope Blizzard can improve the game, and I do really hope that they're able to listen to the players and actually, like, take this feedback into consideration. Like, with the leveling, and actually make Barbarians and Druids fun to play. But yeah, this is Actman video. Give it a like. I love his videos. I think they're amazing.